Have you ever wondered how companies get entangled in costly projects that initially seem so promising, but end up feeling like a bad joke? Imagine this. You have a plan, everything is running smoothly, and suddenly you find yourself in a nightmare so unnecessary that you wonder if you've accidentally landed in a comedy show. That's exactly what happened to James, the managing director, and simultaneously a salesperson for a subsidiary. A few years ago, he faced one of those, "what the hell was I thinking?" situations. He was so terrified of losing an important client that he agreed to a deal that caused more headaches than a hangover after a long night. In this video, we reveal the crazy consequences that can arise from fear-driven decisions. And yes, it's as absurd as it sounds. Stay tuned to hear the full story, and while you're here, subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up so I can keep sharing stories like this with you. Over 10 years ago, when business was still done with a handshake and every deal felt like an epic adventure, James was our hero, a salesman who sold machines as if he were a magician granting wishes. "You want more power? No problem. Less speed. We can do that," was his response to every customer request. In the eyes of his customers, he was more than just a salesman. He was an artist who knew how to tailor the machines to their needs. And as he did so, every sale felt like a small victory, a triumph that made both him and his customers rejoice. But in the midst of this bustling activity, the unexpected happened. The company had decided to implement a new software solution that included a safety-related change, limiting the speed of a machine's movement. James, always dutiful, informed one of his major clients about this change. And this client was none other than Mr. Panic, the king of overcautiousness. If there were a competition for safety consciousness, Mr. Panic would undoubtedly win the gold medal. As soon as James informed him about the software change, Mr. Panic threw his hands up in the air. "What? A speed limit? That's like an invitation for disaster. We need to change this immediately." James could almost feel the air in the room thickening. "Wait a minute," he thought. "We're talking about a machine modification, not a life-threatening safety risk." But Mr. Panic already had his own vision in mind, and this vision involved a massive overhaul of the machines. Without hesitation, Mr. Panic arranged a personal meeting to discuss the situation. "Of course we can do that," replied James enthusiastically, hopping on a plane as if he were on his way to an important state visit. And so, not just James, but an entire delegation of engineers, service managers, and regional directors flew along, as if they were gathering for a world-changing conference. After landing, the delegation explained everything about the new software solution, but Mr. Panic was unimpressed. "That's all well and good, but I think we need a cover, a large, secure cover that encloses the machine. It's not just important for the safety of the machines, but also for my mental health." James felt like he was in a science fiction movie where machines were being outfitted with safety gear that sounded more like sci-fi than reality. But instead of objecting, James eagerly nodded. "Of course, Mr. Panic. If that's what safety means, then we should do it." He didn't want to be the one to incur Mr. Panic's wrath. After all, this was the customer who had bought more machines than you could count on your fingers. As the delegation flew back home, a quiet unease gnawed at James. He wondered if he had made the right decision. What if I end up selling the machines and the customer is still dissatisfied? What if I lose him? These questions swirled in his mind like a never-ending carousel, and he was sure he had to act to keep the customer happy, no matter the cost. So the regional service manager was promptly appointed as the project leader. The poor guy had just been enjoying his quiet time, and now he was caught in the middle of a storm. James explained that the customer needed a cover, a custom-made, high-security certified cover. The service manager nodded, his thoughts spinning wildly. "Okay, we can handle this," he thought. "I can make all this happen." But reality proved to be much more complex. The service manager began compiling the requirements, and the more he communicated with Mr. Panic, the more the project turned into a monster. Full monitoring of the cover with redundant safety switches and integration into the safety control logic was the directive. It was like designing a spaceship, not just a cover. Time passed, and the pressure mounted. James and his team worked day and night as the deadline approached. Overtime became the norm, and the smell of cold coffee and fresh donuts filled the offices, a sign of survival, but also of the constant struggle. "This has to be finished before the Christmas holidays," urged Mr. Panic, "because the machines will be taken out of service then. I want to make sure everything is perfect." And then the big day arrived. After months of hard work and stress, the final inspection was at hand. With a heart pounding as if it were holding its own concert, the service manager presented the final solution. The cover was installed, the safety features were integrated and everything worked as intended. Mr. Panic inspected the machine with the critical eye of a star judge, and for a brief moment, time stood still. "Well done," he finally said, nodding. "I like it. I need 2 more machines retrofitted the same way." It felt like winning a championship. A wave of triumph washed over the team, but no sooner had the cheers died down than the next wave hit. When the service manager tried to prepare the invoice for the months of hard work and expensive materials, his heart sank. Just so you know," someone from the administration said, "James decided that we're going to give the entire solution to the customer for free." The service manager stared in disbelief at the figure on his laptop. "Excuse me?" he asked, as if he had just woken up from a nightmare. "James did all this for free? But we worked on this for months." It was as if the balloon of triumph had burst. The shock left him frozen. What was James thinking? In hindsight, it became clear that James, in his fear of losing the customer, had made a decision he couldn't take back. Months of work, excessive overtime, and the feeling of having achieved something great evaporated in that moment. Instead, the story ended with the thought, how on earth did we let this happen? But that wasn't the end of the story. A few years later, when everyone had forgotten what had happened with the special safety covers, the used machine salesman received a call. "Hey, what should I do with these covers?" he asked. "Covers?" James thought as he woke up from his deep sleep. Oh no, not those things. Neither the service manager nor the used machine salesman knew what to do with the covered machines. So, the covers were promptly scrapped, and the result? An expensive lesson in fear-based decision-making. Imagine investing months in a project only to find out that everything you achieved ends up in the trash, and all because a managing director, afraid of presenting the costs, decided to give the solution away for free. The entire development ended up as scrap on the landfill, and the machines became the laughing stock of the company. This example shows what can happen in a company when you promise a solution to a customer without transparency about the costs and without understanding the actual problem. If only James had clearly communicated, "I don't want anyone to get pinched while operating this," he might have found a more cost-effective solution. Perhaps a simple mirror that would have served the same purpose. But instead, the story unfolded as it did, leading to enormous costs and wasted resources. When we look at the costs incurred for the protective covers, it becomes even more absurd. $70,000 in development costs and $25,000 in material costs for a cover. In contrast, the simple mirror would have only cost $20. The math is simple, and the lesson even simpler. It's essential to truly understand the customer's problems and not jump to solutions. Evaluate multiple possible solutions, create cost transparency, and discuss this openly with your customer. Together, you can often find a solution that is sustainable for both the company and the customer. Because in the business world, it's not just about selling products, it's also about building trust and maintaining long-term relationships. After all, the customer isn't just a buyer, they're a partner, and partnerships are built on communication and understanding. It's like a relationship where you should never be left in the dark. "Do you have time this weekend?" one asks. "Sure, but what are we doing?" the other asks. In the business world, it has to be just as clear. What are your requirements, and how can we meet them? If that's not the case, misunderstandings can easily arise, which can become costly. And remember, the next time you're facing a customer who demands a one-of-a-kind solution, think of James and his story. Don't let excitement guide you. Instead, ask yourself, do I really understand what the customer needs? And is there perhaps another, more cost-effective solution? Because in today's fast-paced business world, it's not just about finding a solution, but the right solution, one that makes sense both functionally and financially. After all, we're all human and we make mistakes, but we can learn and grow from those mistakes. James learned that acting out of fear is not the right approach. Instead, it's better to have the courage to address things openly and honestly. Who knows, this honest exchange might even lead to an even better solution that satisfies everyone in the end. Remember, the key to success isn't just about what you sell, but how you sell it. Be the kind of salesperson who offers not just products, but solutions. The right solutions. And when you do that, you'll not only earn the respect of your customers, but also steer your company towards success. What can we learn from this story? Always try to understand the customer's problem and never assume the solution. Always evaluate multiple possible solutions. Create cost transparency and discuss it with your customer. Evaluate a joint solution that works for both the company and the customer. customer? What have been your biggest business mistakes? Share them with me in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the video and learned something new, don't forget to like it and subscribe to my channel. Until next time, and remember, a bit of humor, a portion of honesty, and the right amount of understanding can help you not only make deals, but build real relationships. See you soon.